Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Over to Jim.
Yeah. So this is going to be about a 7-minute session. What we thought we'd do before we start the DemoFest is actually have the speakers come up, introduce their topic real quick, and show a slide. Rob Fatland's leaving, and he's first. So I'm going to ask Rob Fatland to come on up from Microsoft Research. And I think each of you has one slide. Is this yours, Rob?
Yep.
Let's see if it comes up. There we go.
So worldwide telescopes come up several times today. That's one of the things that I work on, particularly the idea that if you have a complex data set that you can't look at in a typical way, let's say with MATLAB or with an XY chart or something like that, well, we're working to get, particularly with environmental science data, a way for you to look at that data. If it's time series, if it has 500,000 data points. So I'll just go out and set up my computer and show a few examples. They happen to be around a collaboration with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. And we're working with them with AUV data that they've acquired. Actually, multiple AUVs kind of orbiting one another. So it's complicated, it's interesting, and we're looking for cases where we can get to some interesting insight through this tool. That's all I got.
Thanks, Rob. Ian Foster. Is Ian Foster here? Here he is. That's
So I'm not Ian, but I play him on TV an awful lot. So I'm Steve Tiki. So what I'm going to be demoing out there is Globus Online. So many of you are familiar with Globus and our work from decades past around providing really low-level plumbing middleware that's used in a lot of other projects. This is a new effort that just started a few years ago, focusing on end users to say, how can we provide higher-level research data management capabilities directly to end scientists to help them get their jobs done. And we picked a particularly narrow problem on purpose to try and tackle a beginning step, which is file transfer and synchronization. You know, think canonical use cases of users of HPC clusters, you know, whether they're at supercomputing centers, university clusters, HPC clusters in the cloud or Hadoop clusters in the cloud, or scientific facilities, you know, scientific instruments like genome sequencers or light sources where I need to get a lot of data out of. How do I just make that trivial to get that data moved around, big data sets, automatic fault recovery, you know, high performance automatic tuning, and a biggie is across security domains. Sort of make it play really well with all these different security domains that I have at my universities and centers and all this sort of stuff. And so we deliver this as software as a service. It's operated by the University of Chicago for the science community. You know, run a help desk. We made it, you know, if you're familiar with all the old Globus tools, we made it really trivial to install this on laptops, on clusters, all this sort of stuff. And I'll show that in the demo out there. And then finally, you know, we've seen a lot of adoption over this in the last couple of years in across Exceed, Blue Waters, the various DOE centers, ESNet recommending it, a lot of universities, and we announced even just a couple of weeks ago with EGI for Europe, work around globusonline.eu. That's it.
great. Thanks. Eamonn Maguire. There he is in the back. From Oxford.
So what I'll be talking about is the Azure software suite and the Azure tab format. And essentially, we built an infrastructure on top of a format which is domain agnostic. So essentially, we're able to represent many types of biological experiments within one same format. And essentially, what we're trying to do is reduce the barrier to entry for public submitters or submitters to public repositories. Instead of having to submit in 3 different formats for different types of biological experiments, they can go through one and convert out. So we've also added on linked data conversions, and we've got analysis platforms, and we've got all the software in place for doing annotation, management, and sharing of your biological data. So we're presenting the full stack of software, the software suite at the talk. Also talking about the Azure Commons, which is our new approach to bringing together lots of communities, so including pharma and universities producing data, and also biosharing, which is trying to increase the knowledge across policy holders or policy makers, journals, and standard producers to figure out what's going on within the standards landscape.
Tanu, Malik from University of Chicago and Argonne National Labs.
Hi. Well, apologies to those who attended the talk first on this, but frankly, we can talk about this topic for the whole day. And this is on reproducible research. We all know that the increasing frustration that we see with research papers, and especially computational research papers, where one cannot repeat or reproduce the experiment that was done or the data sets that were used. Well, most of the there are increasing body of authors who want to associate their data sets and code and execution, but they don't have sufficient tools which can, or efficient tools which can let them associate those things with the paper. And so this framework, Science Object Linking and Embedding, SOLE, which is also the rising sun in Italian, is for connecting publications to code, data, and execution. We are going to sort of show how we can associate concepts in the paper with code, how you can associate descriptions of data sets to their actual sort of, the path that the author took, say, traversing a large online repository and, looking at the links, how figures can be reproduced, and how data values can be traced. So please join us for a demo. There are 3 research papers that we will show how to reproduce. Thanks.
Thank you. Carly Strasser from California Digital Library.
I'm here representing the California Digital Library along with John Kunze, who's hopefully in the audience somewhere. We're working on the DataUp project, which just got released last week. This was funded by Microsoft Research and the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. And the idea behind it is that researchers don't do a very good job of managing their Excel and other spreadsheet data. And we wanted to figure out a way to facilitate good data management, which leads to better data sharing and then eventually data reuse. So the DataUp tool is free and open source. It comes in 2 flavors, add-in or a web application. So the add-in is available for Windows 2007 and higher, and the web app is available for any operating system. It connects to the DataOne network of repositories, which if you want to know more about, there's a couple of DataOne folks in the audience here, as well as we'll talk about it tomorrow in the session that I'm moderating. And the features of the tool are that it checks for best practices for data management. It helps the user create metadata. It helps the user create a data citation using a persistent identifier. And then it helps the user actually put the data into an archive. And in this case, it's the OneShare repository, which is affiliated with DataOne. So the URL is there for the website, and we'll be doing a demo outside if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Michael Witt from Purdue. There he is.
Hi, I'm a librarian from Purdue University, and for centuries, librarians have cataloged things like books and journals, and in this project, which was funded by the IMLS, Databib, we're cataloging the world's research data repositories. So if you're a researcher and you're producing data and you're wondering where can I submit my data, what is an appropriate repository to submit my data, you can use databib.org to browse and search appropriate data repositories. We're also trying to reach out to an audience of students and researchers who are users of data, research funding agencies who want to track the outputs of funded research and the data that come out of them, as well as librarians who are helping users find and use data sets. You may also be a data center manager or manage a data repository. You can check databib.org to see if your repository is listed. If it's not, you can submit a record for it, which will be vetted by an editorial board and added. We have editors from around the world and an advisory board representing all continents. We are exposing the information about the research data repositories under the Creative Commons Zero protocol, so we're contributing it back to the public domain, and we support a number of machine interfaces beyond the website. So things like social networks, RDFA linked data, RSS, OpenSearch, etc. So the website is databib.org, and you can stop by my table for a demonstration.
Dong Jie from Wellcome Trust Center at Oxford.
Okay.
That'll do the trick.
I see.
It's on.
Did you modify anything?
Yeah.
So basically, I read this in less than 1 minute, but I don't think I can finish reading it. So there's something people believe, but it's not true, especially on bioinformatics. So I will just go through very quickly, and probably you can read it. So the feeling is normally when people join the bioinformatics era, they will go to someone to ask what tool should I use and where should I find help. And normally people will suggest them try to learn Linux because all the tools was right on that. And you just cannot do it on Windows. And which I did some work to prove that's not the case. So I read 12 points, but I think it's too much for 1 minute. Anyway, so, well, I don't know how many people know this is actually the Microsoft motto, which I quite like it. So this is what I did to prove my point and trying to change the world. And if you want to look at, and I think the last session here was people was discussing is cloud really useful. So if you want to see some running example, see how easy to use Microsoft Cloud to solve a very classic problem, which is sequencing data processing. You can just come to see how many lines of code I write in how less time and how fast it can run. So that's it.
Thank you. And Jan Zhu, are you here, Jan? I think our last speaker is out, but I'll show her slide. Jan Zhu is going to talk about the environmental informatics framework and OData. She's probably out there setting up. So give a chance for the speakers to walk out. They'll set up their demos or plug their computers in as appropriate. And that's it for today. Hope everyone attends the Adler Planetarium show tonight. Thank you.